What's up Saab fans around the world, and welcome back to another video. So in today's video we are going to talk a little bit more about the rear wheel drive project and what parts I have gotten so far and my thoughts on the project. So we should just start by scrolling around a little bit right here, and on the other side I have some exciting parts. So here you can see the rear wheel drive, like drivetrain. So we should start right from the beginning with the gearbox. So to start off we have a BMW 6-speed gearbox. The name of the gearbox is GS637DZ. So it's a ZF gearbox, 6-speed gearbox. It's from a BMW 320 diesel. So this is a really nice gearbox, and since it's a 6-speed, the first gear is pretty short, but the other gears are phenomenal. And since it's a 6-speed, you will have a pretty accurate and good speed while driving at like the highways and stuff like that in Sweden. If I would have gotten like a 5-speed gearbox, the gear ratios may have been a little bit wrong, so you get like very high RPM when traveling on the road, like driving for normal. So to get this to fit up against the engine, and the engine is going to be built on the side, so I have gotten an engine stand. So this is really luxury for me. All the T7 T5 builds I have done previously has been with the engine in the car. So this time around I will get another engine, so I will get a 2.3 liter B234 from a Saab 9000, so the T5 engine, and take the T5 block and use a T7 head on it. So it will be a like true hybrid version. Before I have just used the T5 piston and rods and throw them in the T7 block, but now we will use the whole block from the T7 engine, since it has better mounting points for the engine mounts that we are going to have to be making myself. But anyways, for the gearbox, to make this fit the Saab engine, we need to send this off to a guy that are going to use the front half of the gearbox. So he's going to like put this up in a machine to take this off. So use this flange right here and a little bit of the material to adapt it to this gearbox right here so it fits. And we are going to use the 9.5 Aero, probably the pressure plate, and just use another clutch plate. So we will use a BMW clutch plate to fit the splines, because that's different. So it's more splines and a little bit thicker rod in the BMW gearbox. And from the gearbox, as you can see right now, we will talk about that later, but as you can see right here, this is pretty crazy. So the drive shaft and the differential is from Opel Omega or Vauxhall Omega, and this is really nice. You can see how this fits up and it actually bolts on straight to the BMW gearbox. So this makes it so much easier in one way, because there are a lot of challenges when building or converting into a rear-wheel drive. And the first is of course to find a gearbox that fits, and a gearbox that fits the drive shaft. If I would have made this a little bit more simple, I could use the Omega differential, the Omega drive shaft together with Omega gearbox, then it will fit bolt on to the engine. But the Omega gearbox is pretty weak, especially the third gear of the gearbox. So it can handle like 400 Newton meters, maybe, I would say. The gearbox is, or the third gear is really fragile. This gearbox right here is specified to handle 370 Newton meters of torque, but it can handle twice that number easily. So I have seen one guy dyno with this gearbox, and he got 899 wheel horsepower from that car. And there are a lot of people doing like drifting and stuff with this gearbox, and this gearbox is solid. It holds up power really good. So I don't want to do this a lot of times, so I hope that this gearbox fits and it does the job really good. So a 6-speed manual gearbox, and from the gearbox and back it's all Omega. And the tricky part will be to fit the differential into the rear axle, and me and my friend that has supported me and picked out these parts, we have talked a little about using also the Omega wheel hub that's for the Omega. I think it could bolt up pretty nice to the 9.5. So the width of the drive shafts and everything fits pretty good. But we will see further on in the project. But what's really cool is what I have on the other side of the car that we are going to look at pretty soon. But my first thought when I bought the car and I selected these parts, I was debating about using a BMW E39 rear axle. It could bolt up to the 9.5 pretty good, I think. I have seen one other drift build use it. But this is a really nice differential, and I think it could fit up really good. So we will see in the future. But what's really awesome is the parts that I have on the other side of the car here. Because it was a really friendly hand, let's put it that way, that reached out and said, did you know that Saab built like 2 prototype 9.5s that was prepared for rear-wheel drive? They were never rear-wheel driven, but they were prepared for it. So this is prototype parts from Saab, from the Saab factory. So this is parts that you can't get anywhere. But if you look at the rear control arm on the 9.5, you can see that it's bent down, and it doesn't create much space for any like rear axle or anything. So we need to find something that we could have a spline right here and a drive shaft that goes through it. So then they made this upper control arm. It's really basic design. I have seen some like GM stamp on it somewhere, but this is the upper control arm, so it will sit something like this. And with that straight control arm, the upper, we will create a lot of space between here, so we will be able to stick the drive shaft through the hub. And this is the cool part. This is a wheel hub that was meant to be for the rear wheel drive 9.5. So it's a manufactured part, it's not like series produced or anything. So it's the bolt pattern of the 9.5, and the splines are like standard fit, so they probably used like GM parts that we don't really know right now, but I can guess that they did it. And there are no numbers on this part right here, so it's definitely manufactured, but there is one number somewhere right here. It's really hard to see, but there is like a prototype number that has been written on this part right here. So as I said, this part right here is probably almost impossible to get, but I was lucky to get these upper control arms, and they are probably pretty easy to take the measurements and redo or remake. It's not the most advanced technology, but the wheel hub is a little bit harder, and yeah, we will see what we are going to use, but I think I'm going to try to fit the Omega wheel hub and together with the drive shafts, because if that works, the rear axle will be simple. It will be just to fit, make like fitment for the differentials, make space so it could sit pretty centered, so we get the drive shafts out to the hubs, and then just weld in some like cage or something so that we can bolt it in really nice, and get a bolt for this as well. And I have checked the undercarriage on the Omega, so I am going to use the Omega fuel tank as well, because on the 9.5 it sits centered and in the way of everything, so the drive shaft can't go through the fuel tank, so the fuel tank has to come down. But the Omega fuel tank sits right here where the wheel well is from the back, and that needs to go anyways. And the fuel cap actually sits exactly in the same spot on the 9.5 and on the Opel. So there is just only like a clamp fitting or something like that that goes down to the tanks, so we will be able to use the correct hole for the fueling. And that is so nice, because as I said in the beginning of this project, I want it to be as much Saab as possible. So we will be running Saab engine, a modified BMW gearbox, the Opel drive shaft and differential, and then we will see for the rear. But it's amazing if we can still use the Saab rear axle and just modify it. It will get so much easier because my first and initial thought was to take the whole floor from the Opel Omega, so we get to keep the symmetry of all the bolts for the like differential and everything. And that may still be like a plan B, but since I got this prototype upper control arms, I will try to use as much Saab parts as possible. And if you just look now, I have just marked up like the differential where it should sit almost, and the drive shaft is connected, and the gearbox will be something like right here, and then comes the engine. So here you have the lever for the gearbox, and we can extend that a little bit, and you will see it if you just by eye like measure inside the car. You will see that the lever will end up being somewhere pretty close to here. So we definitely need to cut up this and make space for the gearbox and stuff, but I really want to keep the ignition right here and the gearbox right here, but just change the lever to like NG93 or NG95 lever with the 6-speed, since the BMW has the same pattern with like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and the reversed gear. So then we will have a Saab lever as well. This is such a cool project. I got so good response on the first video that I did on this project, and I can say that I am truly hyped about this project as well. It's not you guys, it's me as well. But enough with the talking. I think that we should try to do something in this video as well besides just talking. So the main thing today is try to get this gearbox apart, because we only need like this flange, the lower part, and I have never taken apart a Saab 9.5 gearbox before, so this will be a little bit of a challenge. And this is not a how-to video because I have never done it myself, so this is just learning by doing. What did just happen here? Judging by the selection of tools and how the gearbox is disassembled, you know that this wasn't done the correct way. I used a lot of violence to just get it off. Definitely not how you should do it. So all like Saab and Gearbox builders out there will cry right now. This is not how it's supposed to be, but I just need this part for this build. And the gearbox was real old and real shitty. So this needs to be machined down so it fits. But this will be just awesome. A lot of builds has been done like this, re-welded the cover of the gearbox, so this is not anything like new or revolutionary. This is just basic for the guys that know how to do this, but I think this will wrap up today's episode. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this build series. This is a real dream project for me. It's pretty big, but I hope I will manage and get it to the finish line so we can do some drifting and donuts in this epic 9.5. So please support the channel by subscribing, comment if you have any question, please click the like button, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!